Pasadenans, it is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, coming to you live from, well, the internet, under the auspices of Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. This is RabbiChat, where you can join us live, ask me anything, or just stop by and say hi. Let us know where you're coming in from. That'd be great. We are broadcasting simultaneously on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Facebook, on the various channels for Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. It is my great delight to learn with you today. Today we're going to talk about Shavuot. This is a Jewish holiday that is coming up very soon, and so I want to give you some insight into the origins and the history of it, what some of the practices are, and what is the big takeaway for this holiday for me. And so we're going to get started in just a second after this brief musical interlude. Stick around. Okay, let's see. Let me turn that music down so you can hear, so I can hear myself think. Got this. I have this little scarf on. I look like a patrician with a jaunty ascot, but that is not the case. This is just my normal, everyday, quarantine mask. So plain old bandana. I have a whole big drawer full of these. But these days I'm wearing it all the time. And the reason I'm wearing it all the time is because we have a new puppy in the house. Well, it's been about a month. It's actually tomorrow is our gotcha-versary. I heard when you get a dog, you don't know what the birth date is, and we celebrate the gotcha date. The date we gotcha. So, but we actually thank you to the stage crew back here. We know that her birthday was April 26th. February 26th. Our gotcha date was April 22nd. So tomorrow will be 1 month. And long story short, I may have to go outside at any moment. So we're going to see if we can get through this whole broadcast first. She's actually been doing great on the crate training, but I am going outside with the puppy multiple times a day. And I find that if I don't wear this all day, I forget to put it on before I go out. And that, people, is just bad manners. You should always have some sort of face covering in this day and age, unless you live someplace where you're pretty sure you're not going to come across another human being. So that's my particular philosophy. We're going to talk about Shavuot in just a second. First off, I want to see who is joining us. Triggers and Viv's in the house. Hey there, I've missed you. I miss you too, Trig. So been on a bit of a staycation for a couple of weeks. I'll say an extended staycation. Let's see who is on the multi-chat right now. Good to see that Kay Dixie is joining us. Asked the question, why is Shavuot celebrated less than other holidays? That is an excellent question. So it's sort of a cultural phenomenon these days. And there might be, I might have some hypotheses, but no definite answers for that. So we'll get into it in a second. Triggers and Viv says, today I learned that the rose is the flower of Shavuot. I think that's lovely. There's a lot of roses coming out right now. Good time of year for that. So, extended vacation. I have to apologize. We had said that I was going to be on live Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was my intention to be on live on Tuesday this week. And what's the phrase? Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. So I actually had left my camera someplace else. I left it on the PJTC campus. I was going to broadcast from there. And for the first time in 2 months, I got stuck in traffic. I was in a traffic jam, if you could believe that. What had happened was a pretty horrific accident on the 134 car. By the time I got to the front of it and saw what happened, there were all these fire trucks. There was a car that was just completely torched, and firefighters still putting it out. But I was in standstill traffic and stayed that way through my broadcast time. So I just had enough time to turn around and come back for another meeting I had. So I'm sorry I wasn't here for you this past Tuesday like I said I would be. As you know, I took a bit of a staycation before that for a couple of weeks, which turned out to be puppy boot camp. So it was all day, with the newest member of our family. It was a delight and an education, and had the intended consequence of any vacation of taking my mind completely off work for 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm refreshed. The dog's in a better place. The family is in a better place with the dog, and all's well that ends with a puppy, as they say. So I'm seeing Carla J in the house joining us from YouTube. Nice to see you, Carla. Christy says, Shavuot is my favorite. So when you ask of other holidays, Vit is here joining us from Poland. Nice to see you, Vit. And let's see who else is in the house. We got Kay Dixie, we got Vit, we got Carla J, we've got Christy. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I love learning with you. And so today I want to give you, even though it's in like the top 5, there's when you think about Jewish holidays, some of them were specifically ordained by the Torah. Some of them came along later. Shavuot is of the former category. It says in the Torah, I believe it first says in Leviticus 23:16, something like that, in that neighborhood. It says you're going to have this holiday. It doesn't give you the date like it does for the other holidays. It says first you have Passover on the 15th of Nisan, or rather you start Passover the night of the 14th of Nisan, and then you count 7 days, or excuse me, you count essentially a week of weeks, right? You count 7 weeks, and at the end of those weeks, you're going to have a holiday. And the math works out so that it is on the 6th day of the Hebrew month of Sivan, and so it's on the 6th day of the Hebrew month of Sivan, and then that, but it doesn't say that in the Torah. Like in the Torah, it says, okay, Passover's on the 15th of Nisan, Rosh Hashanah is on the first day of Tishrei. Actually, it uses a different word. It says the first day of the 7th month, which happens to be Tishrei, and then the 10th day of the 7th month is Yom Kippur, and the 15th day of the 7th month is Sukkot, and the 15th day of what it calls Aviv has a different name that it gets later, or Nisan. That's Passover. Shavuot is unique in that it is a biblical holiday. It's one of the only 5 holidays mentioned in the Bible, but it doesn't say what day it is. It just says it's 50 days after Pesach. So you have Pesach, count a week of weeks, or 49 days, and on the 50th day, you will have what it calls variously a Hag HaKatzir. I think that's what it calls it in Leviticus. It calls it Hag HaKatzir, meaning a festival of reaping, or a harvest festival. It also calls it Yom HaBikurim, which means bikurim are first fruits, meaning when you gather in your crops, the first stuff that you gather in, you make a donation of that to holy service. And so this is the Yom HaBikurim. This is the day that you show up with your first part of your harvest. This is the origin of Shavuot, if you will, is that it is a harvest festival. And various hypotheses about this. The one that I'm going to go with is that all 3 of the Shalosh Regalim and the 3 pilgrimage festivals of Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot are related to the agricultural cycle of the ancient Near East, specifically the agricultural cycle around the land of Canaan, or what would become Eretz Yisrael. And so it's possible, I think, that these holidays were actually pre-existing holidays because it's very connected to the earth, and people were farming before they were Jewish, right? There were farmers out there before the Jewish people came along, and they were farmers too before they became Jewish. And so actually, let me take that back. They were farmers, then they were urban construction workers, unpaid, and then they were farmers again. And so it's likely that there was this pre-existing time of celebration that later that God said, you know what, as long as people are getting together anyway, let's elevate it. Let's elevate it with some holiness. Let's take these occasions that they are marking and say, yes, we're there to party, and here's our new intention behind that party, right? Harvest. Right, and I'm not a farmer, so I don't know how these things work out in nature, but I read books. And typically when you are growing wheat in that part of the world, you have a 7-week Omer, and you stack up your sheaves or sheaves. You stack up your sheaves. You count them, right? You count your Omer for 7 weeks, and then after the barley is in, that's when the spring wheat comes in and is harvested. And so you have this 7-week cycle of grain harvest that starts with barley, that ends with wheat, and once all that stuff's in, these are your staple cereal crops for the year. And then in the fall, that's when you harvest all your fruits and vegetables. And so, and maybe, fruit trees, you might pick those throughout the year, but your big final harvest of the year before the rainy season starts, that's all the harvesting you're going to do for the year, and that's a time of celebration on Sukkot. And so these were probably happening anyway, right? And when harvest things happen, people get together, mostly because many hands make light work, but also it's a time of celebration. And if you are in an agricultural economy, this is reason to party. This is as rich as you are going to be all year, is when the crops come in, right? This is when you have plenty. This is when you express your gratitude for that plenty by doing things like setting aside your first fruits and donating them to the temple service and the maintenance, care, and feeding of the Levites, etc. And so this is the origin of these times of year of celebration. But then what God does with the Torah is says you're going to take these natural times of celebration and you're going to kick it up a notch. You're going to elevate it, as they say on MasterChef. You are going to make it special. You're going to turn it up to 11. And so we take this initiation of the barley harvest, this first blooming of spring, and say we are going to not just celebrate spring, but we're going to celebrate the springtime of our people, right? The redemption of the slaves from Egypt because of the covenant that God made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rebecca, and Rachel, and Leah, and all the rest of us. So we have our first spring holiday becomes a holy occasion for the celebration of the spring of our people. The conclusion of the harvest, where this is our basic sustenance. This is our bread, right? Our grain harvest, when that's all done, is another time to celebrate. And then that is elevated by a curious coincidence in the calendar. It doesn't mention this in the Torah per se. It says you are going to have a harvest of reaping your crops and donating your first fruits. By the time of the Talmud, the rabbis are doing a little math, and they're saying, you know what? If you count the days in the Torah story, it stands to reason that the Torah was given at Mount Sinai on the 6th of Nisan, which happens to coincide with Hag HaSukkot, or the Festival of Weeks. And so on the Festival of Weeks, we're going to celebrate not just our bounty, and we're going to devote ourselves not just to donating a part of our bounty in gratitude, but we're also going to celebrate Matan Torah, or the gift of Torah to the Jewish people, and by extension, the world, I think. And so, and I could talk about Sukkot some other time. But Sukkot, again, this was a harvest festival. It was a time of celebration. It just so happens that the practice was when you are celebrating harvest, when you're harvesting stuff, especially something as big as the annual vegetable crop, people tended to build these huts out into the field, because you could, when you're harvesting before the rains come, you're working from dawn till dusk. You are working as hard as you can. You can't walk all the way back to your house. You pitch a tent wherever you stop picking. You sleep there, and you wake up and you keep picking, and then you pitch your tent in the next place. And you do that for some days. And so the rabbis looked at this and said, hey, these tents remind us of the tenuousness of our existence. And more than that, remind us of how God was a shelter for us, a Sukkat Shlomecha, a shelter of your peace when we were traversing the wilderness. And so all of these holidays have an agricultural connection, which doesn't diminish them in any way. I mean, this is how God sustains us on earth. God created the world and then created us to both steward it, but also to be sustained by it. And so I'm not diminishing it by calling these, farmer celebrations. But like we do with so many other things in Jewish life, where we take the mundane, we take the ordinary, and elevate it and give it a deeper spiritual meaning. We've done the same thing with these festivals, including Shavuot. And let's see if there are any other questions in the chat. Let's see. I think Michael Pacheco 92 said, "I'm sure you'll have a blast when the chewing starts." I'm assuming this is related to the puppy and not, my dinner. But so when the chewing starts, that's a good one. The chewing started from day one, and I'll be thrilled when the chewing stops, frankly. And I can't tell. I think she's gotten a lot better. But truth be told, I can't tell if she's gotten better at not biting us or we've gotten better at dodging it. So I think both of those things are true. The crate training's going great. The house breaking is going almost as good as the crate training. It's the biting we're still working on. And everybody says, "Oh, just give her a toy." It's like, I don't know a dog with more toys than this dog. This is the most spoiled dog you've ever seen when it comes to squeaky and chewy things. And yet my hands seem to be the meal of choice. So somebody had asked earlier about why is this holiday... at first I thought you were asking why is it shorter, right? Because of the 3 pilgrimage festivals, or the Shalosh Regalim, Passover is 7 days, Sukkot is 7 days, Shavuot in the Torah is 1 day. We now celebrate it as a 2-day holiday in the diaspora if you are conservative or Orthodox or following 2-day holidays for whatever reason. But I think what Kathy was actually asking was, why does it get the short shrift? First off, it's the number of days it is because that's what the Torah says. It says, okay, for Passover, you're going to eat matzah for 7 days. For Sukkot, you're going to dwell outside and, you're going to dwell in temporary dwellings for 7 days. For Shavuot, it just says, okay, 49 days of counting the Omer, day 50, party time, excellent, and then go on with your lives. But it does, I'll say, culturally get the short shrift in Jewish communities in North America. I can't speak for Israel, but I know about the United States, and Shavuot is just like, it's the best kept secret in my mind. It doesn't get as much attention as Passover. Passover is the single most observed Jewish holiday there is. You may see the most Jews in one place on the high holidays, but when it comes to people observing the holiday, Passover far and away, like 3/4 of Jews in America go to a Passover Seder. Only about half of adult Jews fast on Yom Kippur. So Passover's pretty great. Sukkot, and going back to the time of the Talmud, they called Sukkot Hehag, the holiday. Right. This was in Talmudic times. This Sukkot was the most popular holiday. Shavuot is never talked about that way, unfortunately. Maybe it's associated with, I don't know, taxes in the sense that, this is, hey, everybody, let's celebrate. You're giving away 1/10 of your stuff, or you're making a donation. That's a good thing. I'm just being a little silly here. I think what it comes down to is, on the one hand, maybe it comes down to the fact that we're not farmers as much as we used to be. There's still plenty of Jewish farmers out there. I know some rabbis, in fact, who are doing great work at promoting Jewish agriculture in the United States. I know part of the blossoming of Israel was people's dedication to going back to the land. If I had to guess, I think it's going to be the timing. So much of the American cultural calendar revolves around the public school year, or the school year in general, and the people's propensity to take vacations in the summertime. And I feel like after Passover, people are kind of holidayed out, because Passover is a wonderful holiday that's also a bit of a marathon when it comes to Jewish things that you have to do. And then Shavuot comes along, and it's right as all the kids are getting out from school. Right, it's right as people are starting to take their vacations, and so people just aren't around as much, and so maybe that's, they're like, oh, we're on vacation, maybe we'll go to a synagogue in Hawaii, maybe we won't. I think that's a piece of it, and then by the time you get to the high holidays, everybody's back in, full speed. All the kids are back in school, and I'm saying that as a parent of kids age now 8 as of today, and to 24. Our lives revolve around our kids' school schedule. And so I think that's probably a piece of it. Again, there's no Masechet on this. This is just one rabbi and dad's opinion why Shavuot doesn't get the same attention. On the other hand, for some people, this is the best holiday of the year. I'm looking at you, Christy, because for a couple of different reasons. First, this is where we celebrate the fact that God gave us guidance through the Torah, or as I like to call it, a guide to life for a free people. Right? Shavuot is the answer to the question, you're free, now what? Right? Once you are liberated from slavery in Egypt, the most important question, once you know, hey, we can do anything we want, is what should you do? And Shavuot answers that question with Matan Torah, with the gift of the Torah. It's a guide to, it's how free people are enjoined to conduct themselves in a holy way, for their own prosperity, for the prosperity of the people around them, and for a just society. And that is a big deal. And we then take this gift and we give it to the whole world. There are multiple religions based on this moment in time, when God first speaks the Ten Commandments and then gives the rest of the commandments. And so this celebration of Jewish learning for people who are actively, intensively engaged in Jewish learning is the best, because there is a custom of having what's called a Tikkun Leil Shavuot. You might have seen these as like all-night study sessions or late-night study sessions, especially in a city like Los Angeles, where you have multiple synagogues within a single neighborhood. Some synagogues will get together and have like a progressive learning session where you learn this at Ikar, you learn this at Temple Beth Am, and this, that, and the other at B'nai David Judea. Or you'll go to your synagogue or your Jewish community, and people will have all night or late night study sessions. You know, some people can't make it all night the way they used to. And so it's a celebration of Jewish learning. And then you have experts from different areas of Torah or from different fields who are just kind of curious about Torah, teaching incredible teachings throughout the year, or rather on that night every year. And so it's a really festive and great thing. I'll tell you in just a second what we're planning to do at PJTC a little bit differently this year, but with the same intention. Another reason people like it is because there's a custom of having dairy products on Shavuot. A few different reasons given for that. One, I guess the more religious reason is that somebody conjectured that, okay, before they received the Torah, they didn't know what was kosher and what wasn't kosher, and so everybody decided to have dairy products. You know, we're going to make it melchig tonight because we don't know what fleischig looks like just yet. Another person might say that people eat dairy products because on the day that we received Torah, everybody was wearing white, or rather, as white as it got, because it says in the Torah, before the Ten Commandments are given, God says to Moses, okay, tell everybody, get together at the base of Mount Sinai, and then I think we might call it Horeb at that point, because it's had a couple of different names. Get together at the base of Mount Sinai, purify yourselves, and wash your clothes, because a big deal is happening. And you can imagine that this group of people have been wandering in the desert for 49 days and haven't had a chance to stop and wash their clothes yet. They probably, their clothes might have started white, but they weren't white anymore. And so that day when everybody washed their clothes at once and put on their nice stuff, blinding. So how do we celebrate that? Cheesecake, ice cream, other blintzes, other things that are white. So that's a reason for that custom. But again, it's kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit, maybe because people aren't focused on learning like they once were, although I know a lot of people who are focused on learning, maybe because people aren't focused on farming like they used to be, although there's, I look like a farmer right now sometimes. I'm wearing cowboy boots all the time now because of the puppy. Thank you, puppy. And never mind, I'm not going to dwell on the negative. I'm going to dwell on the positive, because I'm going to take full advantage of this holiday this year, and I hope you will too. Just before I wrap up, I want to let you know what we're doing at PJTC. This is a little spoiler for the benefit of the people who have tuned in for this live broadcast. You're going to get a lot more information about this soon. For people who are subscribed to the PJTC list, you're going to know what we've got coming up. I know some people are watching this who, for whatever reason, can't access that list. I'm going to let you know. We can't get together. for Shavuot this year. That the decision was made, which is really one of the reasons it's sad for me is we've had this great adult B'nai Mitzvah class of adults of various ages who, for whatever reason, didn't get to celebrate becoming bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah when they were at the appropriate age, have been studying for months together, and they were supposed to celebrate that on 2 Shabbats hence, which is the second day of Shavuot. And we canceled that a while ago, and we rescheduled it for next February because we didn't think we'd be able to do that, and we were right. And of course, we're not going to be able to get together and study all night in a confined space like is our preference. So what we're doing instead is we're preparing a series of video lessons that are kind of like TED Talks, right? And so it's like, if you can imagine, if you ever watch TED Talks on Facebook, I mean, there are people who go to TED Talks in person, but the vast majority of people who see TED Talks see them on YouTube or a similar platform. So what we've done is we've gotten together 9 different teachers, including this guy, teaching 8 different topics, one's being sort of team taught. And we're going to have these TED-style talks given by me, by Cantor Ruth Berman Harris, our wonderful Cantor, PJTC, a couple of other rabbis, a couple of other civilians, some great teachers in their own right who have Torah to teach. And so these are going to drop on the PJTC YouTube channel on Monday morning. And so I'm sending out a message tomorrow to PJTC. Look out for, this is what Shavuot's all about. Look out for what's happening. The first is going to be Cantor Ruth Berman Harris and another teacher, her name escapes me right now, are going to be teaching live on Zoom on Sunday evening, and then Monday morning another, let's say, 7 videos of sort of long form lectures are going to drop. I'm going to be talking about wine. So one of my favorite topics is the kashrut of wine, but also the cultural ramifications thereof. And if you can't understand what this might have to do with Shavuot, you should watch it and find out, because it's very much related to Shavuot. So that's what's coming up. Again, stay tuned, whether you're subscribed to our email list or not, whether you can get it on our Zooms or not. On Monday morning, 7 great videos are going to drop on YouTube. If you want to save them for Erev Shavuot and watch them all night, Gegazint. Like if you don't want to access videos on a holiday, you can watch them ahead of time. If you want to watch them and then take a break, if you want to binge them like so many of us have been practicing with Netflix lately, you could do that too. I'll end with this. It doesn't matter to me how you engage with them, as long as you engage with them. What's most important to me is that you watch these and you don't just sort of, have them on in the background, but you really watch them and come up with questions, come up with comments. Your commentary is just as valuable as anybody else's, and go ahead and throw those comments in the comment section on YouTube, and we can get a conversation started about these things. That is the spirit of Jewish learning. It's not monologic. It's dialogue. And so I really look forward to having those conversations with you. Stay tuned. Monday morning, the Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center YouTube page is going to have all these great talks on there, and I will be among them, and some other great teachers. And I really hope they're valuable for you. And that's going to be our celebration of Matan Torah, of receiving this guide to life for a free people, just as we celebrate our gratitude at the bounty that God gives us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Let's see. Kay Dixie asked a real quick question at the end here. Thank you for asking good questions. Does the Shabbat during Shavuot have any different prayers or songs? The answer is yes. There's an additional passage read called the Akdamut. There are sort of separate Torah readings that we don't really do. We don't do the Parshat HaShavua as much. We have a special Torah reading for Shavuot, and then we have a maftir that's specifically for Shavuot. Haftarah is different for Shavuot. So the Torah readings are different from the normal Shabbat Torah readings. There's some additional portions, and it's going to be 2 days. So we're going to have a full service on Friday morning and a full service on Saturday morning, and it's going to be dope. So please tune into those. It's just like our usual live streaming services, only it's going to be Friday morning as well as Saturday morning. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut this down for today. Thank you so much for learning with me. If you have any questions later, or if you're watching this later, feel free to put those in the comment section, whether you're watching us on Twitch or on Facebook or on YouTube, and I'll be excited to engage in those with you. So with that, thanks for learning with me again. I will see you back here live next Tuesday at 3 p.m. And traffic notwithstanding, really looking forward to continuing to learn with you. Until next time, my heroes and my Pasadenans everywhere, peace.